Ever since my husband's first love got divorced, he's been all about her and her kid. He stopped picking up our daughter from school. He doesn't read her bedtime stories anymore. On the day our daughter had an accident, he was at Disney with his first love's kid. The day our daughter died, Larry was at Disney with them too. I called him crying, but he hung up on me. When they brought our daughter out of the ER, covered in a white sheet, Larry texted me, "Christina, unless you agree to a divorce, don't bother me. I hate hearing your voice, get it?" I collapsed to the floor, heartbroken. I get it. Of course, I do. He doesn't love me. He never wanted to marry me in the first place. On our daughter's 5th birthday, Larry asked for a divorce, because his first love, Helen, was single again. She was living a tough life with her kid, and Larry wanted to give them a home. It's ridiculous. Doesn't Dora need a complete family too? I didn't agree. Larry was so mad that he threw his dinnerware. He said coldly, "Christina, if you hadn't gotten me drunk back then, there wouldn't be a Dora. This marriage is stolen by you. Do you want to destroy my life forever?" It stung, but I forced a smile and said, "If a man is truly drunk, he won't react. Don't blame your weak will. If you weren't willing, how could I have forced you?" Rage filled Larry's eyes. "It's because you seduced me. How else could I be interested in you?" I shook with anger. Pain screamed from every cell in my body. Larry and I grew up together. I had a crush on him for years, but he only had eyes for Helen. When she left him for someone else, I stayed by his side through the toughest times. One night, 6 years ago, after I helped him home drunk, I tried to steal a kiss, but he grabbed me and kissed me deeply. When I asked if he knew who I was, he whispered my name, Christina. He knew. I thought I finally made it, but the next day he said it was a drunken mistake. If it weren't for me getting pregnant with Dora, he wouldn't have married me. He doesn't love me. I foolishly believed I could change his mind someday, but I overestimated myself. In the end, I lost everything miserably. For 6 years, he was lukewarm to me, but at least an okay dad to Dora. Now, he's about to leave Dora for Helen and her kid, who isn't biologically his. I couldn't accept it. Sniffling, I held back tears and said, "Larry, I won't divorce you. Go ahead and stay with Helen. If you're not afraid she'll be seen as the other woman." His anger flared, and he slapped me hard. "Christina, how can you be so vile?" he shouted. The pain spread from my cheek to my heart, eating away at my nerves. I staggered and took a step back. Then, I heard Dora crying from the bedroom door. "Daddy, don't hit mommy. Stop fighting." Larry froze. I rushed to hug Dora. "It's okay, sweetie. Daddy and mommy aren't fighting." Just as Larry was about to comfort her, his phone rang. It was Helen. Her daughter was sick and needed a ride to the hospital. Without hesitation, Larry was leaving. Dora clung to his shirt and pleaded, "Daddy, don't go. You haven't been home for so long. You said you'd celebrate my birthday." Since Helen came back, Larry's been all about her and her daughter. He stopped picking Dora up from school, telling bedtime stories, and taking her to play. He didn't even come home much. If it weren't Dora's birthday, he probably wouldn't have come at all. Despite her pleading, he left. Dora asked me tearfully, "Mommy, does Daddy not want me anymore?" That question broke my heart. I hugged her tight, choking back my tears, saying, "Of course not. Daddy loves you. He'd never leave you." But I underestimated how much Larry cared for Helen. The next night, my stomach hurt so bad from my chronic condition that I couldn't stand it. Dora called Larry, crying, "Daddy, Mommy's sick. Can you take her to the hospital?" After a pause, he laughed coldly. "Christina, are you still playing games to trick me into coming home? Your lies are bad enough. Don't teach our daughter to do the same." I could hear Helen in the background. "Larry, Tina won't eat again." Larry's voice softened immediately. "I'll handle it," he said, ignoring Dora and me as he hung up. Now, not just my stomach, but my heart ached to the point of suffocation. I dragged myself up and swallowed some meds. Dora hesitated, asking, "Mommy, who's the lady on the phone? Who's Tina?" I didn't know how to explain. How could I tell her that Daddy was leaving us for another woman and her kid? After getting Dora to sleep, even in her dreams, she called out for her daddy. Before falling asleep, I got a video from Helen. In it, Larry handed a peeled apple to Tina, who thanked him with a smile. He stroked her hair, saying gently, "Good girl, eat more fruit to stay strong." It was a perfect scene of family bliss, weaving pain tighter around my heart, suffocating me. Helen kept messaging, "See, we're a happy family. Christina, Larry doesn't love you. If you have any dignity, stop clinging to him. You need to return what you stole." At first, she looked down on Larry for his average background. That's why she dumped him and married a rich guy. Now, after divorcing her financially struggling husband, she's back trying to find successful Larry again. The funny part, Larry still treats her like a queen. In the end, it's just Dora and me who got hurt. About 2 weeks later, I got a sudden call at work from Emily, Dora's kindergarten teacher. The moment I heard Emily's teary voice, my heart sank. She said Dora fell from a slide and hit her head, and she was being rushed to the hospital. Panicking, I hurried to the hospital. Fear took over, and I cried uncontrollably. With shaking hands, I called Larry. In moments like this, I needed someone to lean on. I wished Larry would tell me, "Christina, don't worry. Our daughter will be all right." But every time I called, he coldly hung up. Grief churned in my chest, and I was close to breaking point. The lights in the emergency room went out. I rushed over, only to see Dora being wheeled out under a white sheet. I dropped to my knees, pleading with the doctors to save her. All they offered me was their condolences. I no longer had a daughter. My Dora was gone. A notification buzzed on my phone. I looked down and saw a message from Larry. "Christina, unless you agree to a divorce, stop bothering me. I hate hearing your voice, get it?" Almost immediately, Helen sent me a photo. The background was Disneyland. Tina, wearing deer ears, was in Larry's arms, holding cotton candy, smiling broadly. Helen wrote, "Christina, how long are you going to cling to Larry? Can't you see we are a happy family?" Overwhelmed with pain, I wept on the floor. "Larry, rest assured, I won't cling to you anymore." That day, I held Dora's cold body and cried endlessly. My Dora, she was so good, so sweet and understanding, so kind. How could she die? If she were alive, seeing me cry like this, she would hug me tightly and say, "Mom, don't be sad. I'm here with you." Why was fate so cruel to take Dora away? Is this karma? Maybe I shouldn't have pursued Larry, who never belonged to me anyway. If I had turned him down that night, I wouldn't be here now. I cried until the sky lightened with dawn. My eyes swelled up like peaches, and my voice was hoarse. Finally, I sent Larry a message in numb despair. "I agree, let's get divorced." This time, he called back immediately. He sounded desperate, afraid I'd change my mind. "I'll fly back today. Tomorrow, we'll get the divorce papers. Christina, I'll send you child support every month. I won't neglect you and Dora." Tears flowed uncontrollably. My voice sounded raw and broken. "Larry, there's no need for support. Dora doesn't need your money anymore. She doesn't need your love either." Larry, irritated, "What are you talking about? Even if we divorce, Dora is still my daughter. That will never change." My heart ached fiercely, and trembling, I said, "Larry, Dora is dead. You don't have a daughter anymore." He stopped breathing for a moment. After a long silence, he suddenly laughed bitterly, lying to himself. "Christina, are you crazy? I knew you didn't want to divorce, but I didn't think you'd stoop to cursing our daughter, just to trick me into coming home." Even now, he thought I was deceiving him. Immense pain hit me like a tsunami. I screamed through my sobs, "Larry, Dora is dead. Our daughter, she's dead. She's lying in the morgue right now." Larry's breathing turned heavy with fury. "Christina, shut up. Dora couldn't be dead. My daughter is waiting for me at home. She's waiting for me to tell her stories, teach her to draw, play Legos, and take her to the amusement park. How could she be dead?" Turns out, he remembers how much Dora longed for him to come home and spend time with her. But what did he do instead? On the 16th last month, he promised to join Dora for the parent-child event at her kindergarten, but he bailed, because he was busy helping Tina get into a new school that day. Last Saturday, he promised to take Dora on an outdoor trip. He ditched that too, because he went with Helen and Tina to the aquarium to watch dolphins. He knew how disappointed and sad Dora was, yet he kept prioritizing Helen and her daughter over her. The pain in my heart intensified. Through gritted teeth, I said, "Larry, you were never fit to be Dora's father." When Larry returned, Dora was already taken to the funeral home. His mother cried into his arms, "Larry, you're finally back. Go see Dora one last time." I looked coldly at pale-faced Larry. He dragged his heavy feet, step by step, slowly moving to Dora's side. His fingers gently brushed Dora's hair. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice nearly choking. "Dora, Daddy is here. Stop sleeping. Open your eyes and look at Daddy, okay? Didn't you want to go to Disneyland? If you wake up now, Daddy will take you right away. I won't break my promise this time." Dora had always wished for her dad to take her to Disneyland, but Larry always said he was too busy, that she had to wait. Yet when Dora died in the operating room, he was at Disneyland, with Helen and her daughter. Thinking of this, I couldn't stop shaking. I raised my hand and slapped him twice. "You don't deserve to be Dora's dad. Get out, get out." Larry stood there, pale and hunched, letting me hit and curse him. Larry's mom stepped forward to stop me, who was all emotional. "Christina, we're just as heartbroken as you are about this. Larry loved Dora so much. You shouldn't blame him. If he truly loved her, he wouldn't have let Helen and her daughter disappoint Dora time and again. I cried and then let out a sarcastic laugh. Why doesn't anyone ask Larry? Where was he yesterday? Who was he with while our daughter lay dying in the operating room? Larry looked up at me. His eyes were red, filled with sorrow that he couldn't hold back. His shoulders shook. He was on the verge of breaking down. After a while, he dropped to his knees in front of Dora and cried, "Dora, Daddy didn't mean it. I thought there was more time. I thought I had time to do all the things you loved with you. I never expected you to. Dora, please don't punish Daddy like this. Please wake up, honey. Wake up. My Dora died yesterday. There's no more future." I glared at him hatefully. "Larry, stop crying. You lost Dora, but you still have a daughter. Doesn't Tina call you Daddy, too?" Larry's body went rigid. His eyes filled with deep regret and pain. His lips quivered as he struggled to speak. "I'm sorry, Christina. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. It's all my fault. Please stop. Don't say any more. Larry, from now on, Dora and I don't need your apologies." On the night of Dora's funeral, I held her clothes and curled up on her little bed, sobbing uncontrollably. I thought about Mother's Day this year. She used her chubby little hands to wash and dry my feet. Then she asked in her tiny voice, "Mommy, am I a good girl?" I smiled and tapped her cute little nose. "My Dora is the most well-behaved and adorable girl in the world." She giggled and snuggled into my arms. "Mommy, when I grow up, I can help you with chores." "Dora, my poor baby girl. How could you leave Mommy? How am I supposed to live without you?" In my grief, I clenched my teeth, took a blade, and cut my wrist. The blood flowed crimson red. The overwhelming pain swallowed me whole. "Dora, wait for Mommy. I'll come find you soon." As my consciousness faded, I saw Larry's panicked face. Christina, don't sleep," he called out anxiously. "I lost Dora. I can't lose you too. Please, Christina, don't leave me." "Larry, didn't you hate me? You didn't love me. So why are you so worried? What a pity. I didn't die." When I woke up, my mom was holding my hand, tears streaming down her face. "Christina, you scared me to death. If you were gone, what about me and your dad? How could you bear to let us bury our child again?" My dad's eyes were red, too. "Christina, you've got to be okay. We're getting old. We can't bear the pain of losing you." Looking at my parents, their graying hair and their tearful eyes, I burst into tears. I remembered how my dad would take me on spring outings by bike, how tirelessly he'd take me to school, pick me up, study late into the night with me. I thought about every meal my mom cooked, every sweater she knitted. How could I die? How could I only think about escaping when I've got parents to take care of? Choking on my tears, I apologized. My mom held me tightly. "It's okay, sweetie. No need to apologize. We know you're hurting. We'll always be here with you." The nurse pushed the door open, and following her was Larry. Before he could enter, my dad blocked his way, punching him in fury. "Get out, cheating scum, like you doesn't deserve to see my daughter." Blood seeped from Larry's lips, but he didn't seem to feel the pain. He begged my dad, "Dad," the nurse said, "Christina's awake. Please let me see her. I just need to know she's okay." But my dad's anger didn't fade. "My daughter is strong. She's fine. She doesn't want to see you. Now get away." With that, my dad slammed the door. My mom wiped her tears. "If we'd known Larry would cheat, your dad and I would never have let you marry him. It doesn't matter. I don't care anymore. Dora is gone, and so is my heart. Whatever happens with Larry and Helen is none of my business now." Unable to see me, Larry flooded my phone with messages. He talked about how much he loved Dora, how much he couldn't let go, how sorry and miserable he was. He admitted it was all his fault. He shouldn't have been misguided and left Dora and me. Without Dora, he's in as much agony as I am. Seeing me with a slit wrist shattered his heart. He realized, too late, that he couldn't handle losing me. He begged for a chance to atone, to help me through this grief. Reading his heartfelt confessions, I only felt sorrow. "Larry, how am I supposed to move on? Dora was my baby, my daughter whom I carried for 10 months. She meant the world to me. Without her, there's no moving on." I was so sad that I even cried in my sleep. In the haze, I felt something rough wiping away my tears. I groggily opened my eyes to see Larry's bloodshot eyes. His voice was hoarse beyond recognition. "Christina, are you feeling any better?" I snapped awake and swatted his hand away. "What are you doing here?" He looked at me deeply. "I'm worried about you. The thought of that day, you cutting your wrist, it terrifies me. Christina, I'm begging you, please live on. I won't seek death again, but that's for my parents' sake, not his." My voice was icy. "Larry, cut out that lovey-dovey act. It's making me sick. Get out of my hospital room right now." His face was etched with deep sorrow. "Christina, you used to love me so much. Can you really push me away?" he said. Turns out, he knew once upon a time, I had loved him with everything I had, but when did he ever cherish my true feelings? The abrupt ringing of a phone shattered the night. Seeing Helen's name on the screen, he paused. I sneered, "Your future wife is calling. You should hurry back to take care of her and your daughter." His face went pale, his lips trembling. "Christina, I know I was wrong. I'll cut ties with her completely, I promise." He answered the call. Helen's anxious voice rang out. "Larry, Tina had a nightmare. She's crying and won't stop. Could you comfort her? You know she listens to you the best." Larry's brow furrowed, his voice as cool as ice. "Helen, stop contacting me from now on. After everything, I've realized the one I truly love is Christina. I've hurt her too many times, and I don't want to hurt her anymore. Don't reach out to me again." Helen started crying dramatically. Larry ignored her and hung up the call, then blocked her right in front of me. "Christina, I won't see her again. Can we start fresh? Please, give me a chance to make it up to you." My heart ached. Feeling disillusioned, I asked in despair, "Start over. Can you bring Dora back to life?" His face turned gloomy, eyes full of pain. I looked at him coldly and pointed to the door. "If you can't, then leave." He stood up in defeat and stumbled out, looking utterly desolate. After I was discharged, I asked Larry for a divorce. He refused to sign the papers. 2 months ago, he was afraid I'd cling to him. Now, he's the one who won't let go. It's ridiculous. I stormed into his office and smashed many things in anger. He didn't get mad, letting me vent. "If it makes you feel better, you can destroy the whole company, and I won't stop you." I threw a glass of water in his face and yelled, "You're insane." Before storming out, before heading home, I stopped by the supermarket. In the candy aisle, I froze when I saw a brand of fruit candy. Dora used to beg me for it, but I wouldn't let her have it because of her teeth. Once, she pouted and said, "All the other kids get candy, why not me? Does mommy not care about Dora anymore?" I sighed and tousled her hair. "I'll get you mangosteen and oranges. Let's eat more fruit and skip the candy, okay?" Hearing that, she was sorely disappointed. Thinking of her sad little face filled me with regret. I took a deep breath, calmed myself, and went to grab the candy. But someone else got there first. A woman snatched the last 6 bags. As she tossed them into her cart, I realized it was Helen. "Sorry, Tina loves this brand of candy. As her mom, I have to get it for her," she said sarcastically. "But if your daughter likes it, too, I can spare you a bag." Seeing my shock, she smirked. "Oops, I forgot. You don't have a daughter anymore, right?" Bitter about being dumped by Larry, Helen took it out on me. "Isn't it karma?" she taunted. "You stole my man, and he took away your daughter. It's only fair." Furious, I slapped her. "What kind of person are you?" A perfect handprint bloomed on her cheek. Incensed, she insulted me as she yanked at my hair, and we started fighting. Staff called the police. At the station, both Helen and I looked disheveled, faces marked by nails. Larry arrived with a lawyer, and Helen played the victim. "Larry, Christina hit me first. I had no choice but to defend myself." "Why be with such a hot-headed woman?" Larry cut in coldly. "Shut your mouth. It's not your place to lecture Christina." Helen's face turned sour. Seeing the scratch on my cheek, his eyes softened with pity. He raised a hand to touch the wound, but I slapped it away. "Stay away, don't touch me." His expression darkened, and he pulled back. After sorting out things, he left with me, ignoring Helen's wailing from behind as she screamed at him for being heartless. I mocked him. "Helen was your old flame. Aren't you being a bit harsh?" Larry rubbed his temples wearily. "Christina, I'm done with her for good. What do I have to do for you to soften up?" I laughed bitterly. "Maybe you could be reborn and try again in the next life." My attitude deepened Larry's dismay. His eyes were filled with sorrow. It was late, and he insisted on driving me home, worried about my safety. I refused, hailing a cab. Yet, his car followed mine all the way back. It seemed he did care, in a way. Suddenly, I remembered Dora's 5th birthday. We took her to the amusement park near our place. On the way home, she walked between us, holding both our hands. Near the house, she cheekily linked our hands. "Mom and Dad, you look perfect together," she had exclaimed. I still remember how Larry froze on the spot. He practically shook off my hand instinctively, like I was some sort of virus. As I snapped back to reality, I realized the car had stopped outside the apartment complex. I got out, and Larry followed. I looked at him with disdain, impatiently saying, "Larry, don't you know how annoying you are?" Larry's voice was hoarse. "I'm just worried about you. I didn't mean anything else." His concern and affection came too late, making it seem completely unnecessary. I chuckled, full of sarcasm. "Do you like taking care of your exes that much? With Helen, and now with me?" His brow furrowed deeply. "You're different from her. You're my wife." I corrected him immediately. Soon to be ex-wife. Mentioning divorce, Larry still refused to give in. By now, he actually fantasized that I might come back. How ridiculous. I didn't want to argue any longer. so I went straight to court to file for divorce. After getting the news, Larry called immediately. In a voice filled with disbelief, he asked, "Christina, do you really have to go this far? Is it my fault?" Getting to this point, he truly had no excuses. When I got home that night, I could see him from a distance, leaning against the wall, looking worn and forlorn. As I got closer, I smelled the strong scent of alcohol. Maybe he'd had too much. His eyes were terribly bloodshot. He stared at me intently, his voice raspy. "Christina, you changed the locks. I can't get in." There was even a hint of grievance in his voice. I couldn't help but mock him. "You love drama so much. Maybe you should quit being a boss and become an actor." His eyes darkened, and he suddenly took 2 steps forward, embracing me. I spoke coldly, "Let go, or I'll call the cops." He acted like he didn't understand, muttering, "Christina, let's not get divorced, okay? I'm really sorry. Every day, every second, I'm filled with regret and self-blame. I failed you and Dora. I'll change. I really will. From now on, I'll listen to you in everything. Just forgive me this once, will you?" How could I forgive? My daughter will never come back. How could I forgive? With all my strength, I pushed him away. He stumbled, falling embarrassingly against the wall. I looked down at him coldly, saying, "Don't disgust me with your so-called deep affection. Larry, I really regret ever loving you. If I could, I'd rather have never met you." Upon hearing this, it was as if the soul was sucked out of him, staring at me blankly, his gaze empty. After a while, he hunched over, covering his face with his hands, and I heard his muffled sobs. I saw tears seeping through his fingers. "Larry, if you knew it would turn out this way, why did you go down this path?" Larry finally agreed to the divorce, but when I got the agreement, I was still shocked. Besides the house, I hadn't expected him to give so many stocks and cash. When signing, his smile was forlorn and bitter. "This seems to be the last thing I can do for you. Christina, from now on, just keep moving forward. There will surely be plenty of wonderful things waiting for you." I didn't say anything more. I lowered my head and signed. After the divorce, life carried on quietly. Every weekend, I'd go to the orphanage as a volunteer. Being around the kids improved my spirits. The sound of their laughter made me feel cheerful. That day, I unexpectedly saw Larry at the orphanage. He was playing a game with the kids. He had long been a star of attention, and yet, at that moment, I could see a touch of innocence in his smiling eyes. Talking to the director, I learned that for more than 2 years, Larry quietly made significant donations. The director frequently expressed gratitude, and Larry just said, as long as the kids could grow up healthy, that would be the best reward for him. I felt a bit wistful. When I came back to my senses, Larry was already standing in front of me. He said to me, "Long time no see. This city isn't small, yet it's not that big either. But in almost 3 years, the times we met are few and far between." Larry's lip curved into a faint, bitter smile. "Because I know that not seeing me would make you much happier." Sounded like he was deliberately avoiding me, but he wasn't wrong. I really didn't want to see him. I thought for a moment and said, "Thank you for your donations." He replied gently, "These kids are lovely. Being with them, life feels easier. So there's no need to thank me. I'm just doing what I can." He really seemed to have changed a lot. Not as sharp as before, more reserved and steady. He tentatively asked, "Christina, can we have lunch sometime?" His eyes hinted with expectation. I shook my head, calmly saying, "I don't have a habit of being friends with exes." His eyes slowly darkened. "I understand. It's okay, as long as you're happy. Don't worry about my feelings. I'm not that fragile." I truly didn't care about his feelings at all. I nodded, said goodbye, and left. The next time I saw Larry was 2 months later, for Dora's 9th birthday. I brought cake and candy to visit her grave. When I arrived, Larry was kneeling in front of Dora's tombstone, his shoulders slightly slumped, his silhouette utterly solitary. In sorrow, he spoke, "Dora, how are you over there? Daddy misses you, really misses you. Daddy's sorry for everything that happened with you and Mommy. These past years, I often visit Mom secretly. She's always thinking about you. So, please, watch over her, wishing her peace and joy in life, okay? It's Daddy's fault. In the next life, Daddy will make it up to you and Mommy." When I walked closer, I happened to hear the last sentence. I frowned and said, "Thank you for visiting Dora, but in the next life, let's not meet." Larry's body abruptly froze. He turned to look at me from the left. Choking back tears, he asked, "Christina, are you so heartless that you won't even leave me with a memory?" I looked at him calmly. "Larry, let go of your obsession. I stopped loving you a long time ago." His disappointment was obvious, with a mix of pain and regret in his eyes. but I wasn't too bothered. I placed the cake and candies at the grave. Dora, happy birthday. Mom has never forgotten you. Don't forget me either, okay? Remember, Mom will always love you. You will always be Mom's precious little princess. I raised my hand, gently touching Dora's photo on the tombstone. My baby, her smile as bright as ever. My vision started to blur, and I bit my lip, telling myself over and over not to cry. Christina, don't make Dora worry. Larry offered me a handkerchief. I glanced at it but declined. I took a tissue from my pocket and wiped the tears from my cheeks. Larry looked downcast and awkwardly retracted the handkerchief. As we left the cemetery, he cautiously asked, "Can I take you home?" I refused him again. I put on my sunglasses, hiding my swollen eyes, and walked away. I could feel Larry's intense gaze burning into my back, but I never looked back.